Welcome to 3D Movie Cinema, the only show that's 3 dimensions away from Scream 3 called Scream the Final Chapter. I'm your host 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Scream, released in 2000. Before we get started, I'm going to let my buddy Matt, because I decided it's Scream 3, and me and him have different takes on this movie. He actually more enjoys it than I do, but we do agree that this movie is a little bit messy. So I want to hear his thoughts on it first, and then you'll come back and hear mine. Take it away, Matt, you sick son of a bitch.
Hey there, guys. I wanted to give a big thanks to Jake for 3D Movie Cinema for inviting me onto his channel to talk about Scream 3 that came out in 2000. I was born in the early 90s. I grew up through that decade all the way up through the early 2000s. Now as a kid growing up in the early 2000s, not gonna lie to you, Scream 3 was the first Scream movie I've watched before watching Scream 1 and 2. I didn't watch it until after. And Scary Movie, the slasher spoof movie that came out in 2000, came out in the same year as Scream 3. And I watched that before watching Scream 1 and 2. And when I watched Scream 1 and 2 after, I really loved it, especially the original film. The original Scream movie is my favorite slasher horror movie of all time, especially when it was directed by the great Wes Craven himself, and it was written by Kevin Williamson, who brought the characters and the story to life. And when they made that movie, they revitalized the slasher genre movies, because in the mid-90s, 30 years ago, it was dead at that time until they made Scream 1. And Wes Craven was the legendary director, R.I.P. to Wes Craven, the same man that made the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and he directed all 4 of the Scream movies. Now, for Scream 3, I watched that film countless times on VHS tape, and I really loved it at the time, and I still liked it to this day. I know it's not perfect, and most people say it's the worst of the franchise, which I understand why, but I don't care. Scream 3 is my guilty pleasure in my opinion. Now, going into Scream 3, you're following this new Ghostface killer who's now in Hollywood, and he's going and offing off these cast members who are in Stab 3, and he's killing them off in order they died in the movie, who are playing these real life characters that we know. This is the first Scream movie that they killed off a major character in the opening of the film, and it's Cotton Weary, played by Liev Schreiber. His character made a cameo in the first movie, then he got a major role in the second film. His character was an innocent man that was framed for the murder of Sidney Prescott, and then he was proven innocent and got famous by the end of the second movie. Now, when they killed him off, it took everybody off guard, and we did not see that coming. Now, for me, at the time, I had no idea who the hell he was. I didn't know his history because I didn't watch Scream 1 and 2. And after watching Scream 1 and 2, now knowing his history, it brought a lot of impact. It brought a lot of stakes, and that nobody was safe. Because in the beginning of the first 2 Scream movies, they kill off characters that we just met. And this is the first time that they killed off a major character, and it broke the cycle. And it's playing off the rules of a trilogy, because once we get to the third film, all bets are off. No character is safe, not even the main character itself. And this was going to be poking fun of the whole rules of a movie trilogy, like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or Godfather. There is also many alternate deleted scenes on the Blu-ray bonus features that you can find, and you can find that on YouTube as well. And there are many scenes of Cotton Weary getting killed off. There's been different ways of how he got killed off in the movie, and they did a lot of reshoots on that one, and you can find that on YouTube. But if not, you have to find it on the DVD or Blu-ray bonus features. And originally, if you listen to the audio commentary with Wes Craven and the producers, originally they were not going to kill off Cotton Weary in the beginning of the movie. If I remember correctly, I think they mentioned that they were going to kill off one of the cast members of Stab 3, and that would have set the tone of the film. But they thought that we need to add stakes, and that we got to kill off a major character to set the tone of this third movie. I honestly really enjoyed the banter of the cast members of Stab 3, who are the victims in the movie, and they're playing these real life characters that we know and love. I love how they were able to poke fun of the obvious of the whole meta commentary of how Hollywood is mistreating these working actors and giving them mediocre roles, and how they have to play it safe and get ahead in the business. They also do touched on some of the dark times in Hollywood, and how Hollywood producers are mistreating women, and how they have to play ball in order to get roles that they want, and how to get ahead in the business. They do touch on it a little bit, and how ironically, this character that is played by Lance Hendrickson, that's playing a horror Hollywood producer, is the one who's mistreating women. And he's literally playing the version of Harvey Weinstein. because Harvey Weinstein at the time was a producer of the Scream movies, and this was before he got exposed to what he has done to women in Hollywood, and it started the whole Me Too movement. This was way before that, but I feel like Wes Craven snuck that in a little bit, and Lance Henriksen was basically playing the version of that guy. And Lance Henriksen was great in the movie. I mean, he was coming off of from James Cameron's movies Aliens and the first Terminator movie, and I thought he was really good. He was a really good addition. Didn't have a major role, but I thought he was good for what they have gotten. I start to notice the absence of Nev Campbell's character, who is playing Sidney Prescott, who is supposed to be the main character of the movie. And she doesn't have as much screen time as much as David Arquette or Courtney Cox's character, who is playing Dewey and Gale. Dewey and Gale felt more the main focus. They were the main characters. And Sidney Prescott was more of the supporting character. Now, to be fair, if you listen to the audio commentary by Wes Craven and the producers of the movie, they were only able to get her for 20 days. And if I remember correctly, they mentioned that she was shooting 2 other movies, and that's why they were only able to get her for 20 days. So they had to use every amount of screen time as much as they could and use those 20 days and make it count. And luckily, they were able to pull it off. And for her character, Sidney Prescott, she's living out in the middle of nowhere. She's shut herself off in the world so that no psycho killers can come and find her. And the only way she can serve a purpose is that she participates in a woman's crisis hotlines in order to make a difference, but go by a different name. And I like that idea. I like that she was not able to be careless, but she could still find another way to serve a purpose in the movie. And also, we're seeing her struggling. Now that she knows that there's another killer out there who has fallen the legacy of a ghost face, she's now being taunted by the past of her mother, and she's having nightmares. She's not sleeping very well. I love Dewey and Gale's banter. I love their chemistry. They continue to hit it out of the park. I'm not a fan of Courtney Cox's hairstyle, her bangs. It was a poor choice, in my opinion. But I will say that they continue to kill it, even though that they were actually married in real life when they were making this movie. I love Patrick Dempsey's character, who's playing the detective, who's the one who signed Gale to the case of Maureen Prescott, who was Sidney Prescott's mother. We revealed a lot of the dark truths about her and why she was the way she was. I loved that. And the cameos in the movie, I loved it. Jay and Silent Bob, that is played by Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith, they did a cameo in the movie. It was one of the best parts of that film, and it was a cameo that never should have worked, but for some reason it did. And this was at the time that they were shooting Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. They were shooting it simultaneously, and Wes Craven and Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith were cameoed in each other's movies, and I thought that was pretty cute. And Carrie Fisher, I loved her cameo. She was playing a different character who was poking fun of herself. I thought that was one of the highlights in the movie that I really enjoyed. Now, the plot holes in the movie that I felt like it didn't make any logical sense. We only had one Ghostface killer, and it's Roman, the half brother of Sidney Prescott and the director of Stab 3. And he's the one who's pulling all the strings. And he was the one who's responsible for the creation of Billy Loomis, who became a psycho killer in the first place. He was the one pulling all the strings from the very beginning, and and the whole truth gets revealed in the third act in the finale. But the thing that didn't make any logical sense, how was he able to be in 2 places at once? I did not like that. I thought that was added a lot of major plot holes, and it didn't make any logical sense. And I think, and if I remember correctly, I don't know if this is true or not. I think originally they were going to go for 2 Ghostface killers, and I think the one that they were going to go with was uh, uh, Angelina Tyler, who was the actress who's playing Sidney Prescott in the movie, and it's played by Emily Mortimer. And I thought she was great in the film, and they played off the suspicion that she might be one of the Ghostface. They played off a lot of suspicion, and they kept us in the suspense all the time. And if you see the memoriam of the victims that get killed off in Scream 3, she was not in it. So it kept us wondering, was she the second Ghostface? But it was revealed that she wasn't the Ghostface in the movie, but it would have made more sense if she was the second Ghostface. That would have made a lot more sense than having just one person doing all this. It just did not add up very well. That I think that was part of the reason why people didn't like it as much, is because there was only one Ghostface, and it just added a lot of major plot holes in the movie that it just didn't work. But for me personally, I thought they did a good job of closing off the chapter of this trilogy of the Scream franchise at the time before they decided to do the fourth one. I thought they closed it off very well, in my opinion. And I thought the climactic finale really worked. And Patrick Dempsey, who was playing the detective in the movie, I thought he was a great addition to the film. This was before he became famous from Grey's Anatomy, and this was before he did the show at the time. And they definitely kept us believing that he might have been the Ghostface killer. That part would have made more sense too, but I love how they were able to kept us in suspense and fooling the audience into believing that he might be the Ghostface killer, but it turns out he wasn't. But I thought he did a great job in his performance, and he had a great chemistry with the cast members, with Nev Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox. And one thing that it became a little bit of far-fetched in the movie that at the time it did not work is that the Ghostface killer was adding the voice changers of other people to fuck with the characters that we know. And I thought it was so much of a far-fetch. I mean, 25 years ago, I would say there was no way that would have been possible. But now in today's world with AI and stuff and how they were able to disguise and mimic other people's voices, now it's not that far off. This movie was literally way ahead of its time. But overall, I really enjoy this movie. I enjoy it more and more I watch it. But anyway, thank you guys for so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. If you want to follow my channel, just follow my channel at MattY92. I'm pretty sure Jake will put that link in the description down below. Anyway, thank you guys for having me on, and back to you, Jake.
Thank you so much, Matt. Once again, I really appreciate your review. It is really a privilege to work with you on Small Zero, Small Talk, Talking Gotham, Talking Silence, and of course, I'm sure other projects in the future. So, now, Scream 3 is directed by Wes Craven and is written by Aaron Kruger, this time based on characters created by Kevin Williamson. The movie stars David Arquette, Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, Patrick Dempsey, Scott Foley, Lance Henriksen, Matt Keesler, Jenna McCartney, Emily Mortimer, Parker Posey, Dionne Richmond, and Patrick Warburton. The movie is essentially the third and supposed to be final chapter, the conclusion of the Scream trilogy, where essentially Sydney this time is living in like a recluse, and she basically lives under a false identity. She carries a gun with her. She's very like paranoid because of all this stuff is happening. And then of course when people, and now they're making a third Stab movie, which this time is a fictional version of what happened in Stab 1 and 2, since there hasn't been another Stab attacked in years. And so of course then people in the cast start dying the way they're originally meant to die in the script. And then of course Dewey and Gail come to the picture, and they're trying to figure out the connection because they see pictures of Maureen Prescott, Sydney's mother, and what's the connection between Sydney and her, and why is the killer doing all this. When I first saw this movie, I think I saw either Scream 2 or Scream 3 first. And, you know, I've told the story 1,000 times, but Scream 3, I used to love this movie when I was a kid. I love the movie. I love the music video at the end of the VHS that played Creed What If. And so I was really a big fan. I could not wait to watch this. And also the first time I discovered Scary Movie 1 was attached to the trailer. It was attached to the Scream 3. If you watch the VHS Scream 3, Scary Movie 1 was attached to it. And I've always been a big fan of scary movies, and I love Scream. And I just really am a big fan. And also, if you go watch Scream 7 in theaters, the trailer for Scary Movie 6 is attached to Scream 7. So there's a little fun nod to you. But when I really wanted to see this movie, I was so excited. I rented it. And then eventually I even traded The Simpsons Hit and Run for the PS2. I know I'm crazy, for a VHS copy of Scream 3. And the worst part was, it didn't even have the cover. That's how much I love Scream. And I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Scream franchise. And I remember just watching this movie wanting to love it because I love Scream 1 and I love Scream 2. Scream 3, years down the road, I really just de-appreciated this movie because I just like, there's so many plot holes in this movie. And I think that's one issue I had with this movie as a whole, is that the movie doesn't do a lot to really, what's the word I'm looking for? The movie doesn't do a lot to really establish, like, there's supposed to usually be two killers. Like, there's always two killers. And instead of this one, there's one. And I know a lot of things there. This originally, Kevin Williamson did write this movie. He originally wrote the movie Scream 3, and originally it was supposed to be about like a cult of ghost faces and controlled by Stu. And literally at one point, Sydney was going to walk into the house that recreates the murder from the first movie. And then you see all these dead people lay around. Then they all rise up and they're all ghost face, you know. And it was supposed to be that way, which I know Kevin Williamson reworked that idea into the show he made called The Following that was on Fox with Kevin Bacon. But I really would like to have seen that script compared to this one, but I understand Columbine had happened. And so the studio was like, okay, they're not trying to make horror films, especially in high school and colleges, and have students kill people. So they asked them to rework this and make it all about adults killing, And at first, they even had the Weinsteins had a request of not even having any blood in the movie, to which Williamson and Wes Craven protested, saying, it's a fucking horror film. There's no way you can make this without blood and horror. And so, and of course they finally caved and said, all right, just make it have no connection to Woodsboro, make it no connection really to high school at all, make them adults. And so finally they caved. And of course, Kevin Williamson was off, I think, directing Teaching Mrs. Tingle, and so he couldn't even write the script. And so they brought in Aaron Kruger, who I think did revisions on Scream 2. And so he wrote the script for Scream 3, and it was just like going through redraft to where him and Wes Craven was working on the script. And originally the idea was there was going to be two killers, and of course, Matt kind of on this earlier, where it was going to be Emily Mortimer's character, who was supposed to be like the second killer, and she was a friend of a fling of Roman's, and was a friend, went to high school with her, and she was always jealous of her, and so she was basically going to kill her and take her place in a way. And it was like, and that explains a lot. And they shot the whole movie that way. And then, of course, the Weinsteins hated the cuts. So they had to go back and they dropped the two killer aspect they reshot the third act, the entire third act. And they also, test audiences hated it. So they went back and they added Patrick Dempsey to the third act because he gets killed. And then they wanted to bring him back to make him alive. Like, all right, we'll bring Patrick Dempsey and show he survives, and then wrestle with Ghostface. And they also kind of re-edited to make it because apparently in the early screenings, and so basically his motivation wasn't as clear compared to the reshoots. And so Wes Craven said there was a lot of reshoots, and they didn't even fix it because they reshot the first opening that had revealed Cotton Weary gets killed like much easier. His girlfriend just gets killed, falls down after he goes to the Creed radio. He turns Creed off. She falls down dead. Then the Ghostface shows up, stabs him. He crawls for the balcony and falls and gets stabbed in the leg, comes down, and then the Ghostface kills him again. They did that. Did not work. So they tried it again. They reshot again. Did not work. So finally went with this ending, the one you saw in the theatrical cut. That's what the opening they went with. And then, of course, Neve Campbell was not available because she was doing Party of Five and 2 other movies. So, of course, they had only got her for like 12 days. So they shot Neve Campbell stuff in 12 days. And that's why Dewey and Gale have more of a screen time than Neve Campbell does. And then, of course, Wes Craven was constantly rewriting the script with Aaron Kruger. They were trying to, figure out, the story still, because, we had shot the movie, and now we got to go back and do reshoots and how to rewrite the script. And Wes Craven said it was that's the reason why he didn't want to make another Scream after this, because he was so done. Because he's like, every time I try to make a script movie, they keep fucking me, the Weinsteins. And so, of course, the movie had come out, and people hated it, but it's gained a cult following over the years. And I do think there are things I do like in this movie. If you pretend I like to see now that Angeline is the killer, because if you see her as the killer, then it makes more sense in the movie. Because otherwise, Ghostface, because they never reshot that where it only makes it cohesive of one killer. And so there's two basically killers. In fact, they did delete one scene because it contradicted something in the movie of being two. And so they cut it out, but where Roman's on the roof watching her, and the female Ghostface is in the closet that kills her. They cut that scene out just because it would contradict there being more than one. It'd be kind of being less than one. And so what I do like this movie, what I like about it is I like that Sydney. I think she's a character that's like Gloria Strode in Halloween 2018. I like that she's more like that, especially when he calls her and everything, and she pulls the gun out. I like that aspect. I like when she's being chased and she sees the set, and it feels like they're remaking her life. And then you see the killers attack her. I thought that was great. And then, of course, when she runs into Angeline, who's supposed to be Ghostface, and I'm like, I like to think that idea, oh, that's the actual mask and that's the actual phone that she's been calling her on. And I thought that was a really cool nod. And I always like to see they're Ghostface up until I like to see that Roman just kills her, just so he doesn't have to. We don't get that big reveal of her taking the mask off. Because I'd like to just see Roman just stabs her in the heart, kills her, and takes her off the leaderboard. Because he's like, I don't need you anymore. You did everything I asked, but I don't need you. And I like to think that's what he did, just kills her. Because and everything else makes sense of it being Roman in the house party, which the house party originally, it was supposed to be, that actually was in the original cut of the movie from what I read. The whole house sequence of Sidney being chased by the two killers, that was all supposed to be the third act of the movie, and then they reshot it and reworked some of the scenes to make it like just a middle act, because they said they should make it a Hollywood mansion in the third act, because apparently it was too similar to the Scream 1 and that Wes Craven didn't want to repeat himself. So they reshot that because he said, I don't want to repeat myself. So of course, which I mean, I think that would have been cool to have her in the set of a Hollywood production, but I understand why. I do like, though, I do like the killer's motivation. Her brother being like, I'm your brother. Although the funniest thing ever is when he takes the mask off and she's like, who the hell are you? That is so funny. She's like, because it's always someone and she doesn't know this guy. Like, yeah, he's related to her, but she does not know him. And so I think that's so funny. I mean, if she would have met him, it probably would have had more impactful, but it's like, he's like confused, like, who the hell are you? I thought that was so funny. And I do like, how, you have Gail Weathers, who has this annoying sidekick the whole time that's like, is the actress playing her, Jennifer Jolie, which is the cross between Angelina Jolie and Jennifer Aniston. And she's more parodying Jennifer Aniston because Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox are friends. And they did the show Friends. And so I think that's really funny. And I like how she just goes around the whole time, just being like a pain in her ass. I thought that was really funny. And I do like that there's a funny scene where the killer's downstairs and he pulls a gun out. And then he pulls a gun on the killer and the killer just throws the knife and it hits the back of it. So he falls down the stairs. It's so goofy, but it's so funny. And I do like Randy's cameo because it makes it, I feel like that was more impactful than if you're like, oh, Randy wasn't really dead or something like that. I think that's more impactful of seeing him on a video camera. I do like the Jay and Silent Bob cameo because they cameoed in this movie, and then of course Wes Craven cameoed in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and so I thought that was really funny. Wes Craven even cameos as himself in the movie as well, as like a tourist next to Jay and Silent Bob, and I thought that was really great. I do like the Creed song "What If." It's a great tie-in song they put in the movie, and I do kind of wish, and I do like that. If this would have ended, the movie series would have ended right here. It's so hopeful at the end because Sydney's no longer afraid. She opens up. She's no longer be afraid of people, and she leaves the door open, realizes she doesn't have to. It's all finally over. Although, and then we get Scream 4, and I love Scream 4, but I'm just saying we get Scream 4. But I do also like, there's some things I dislike in the movie. I'm trying to think, there's a lot I dislike in the movie, but I'm trying to think of things I do like. I do like, you hear like Red Right Hand again, and I like that they do remixes of that in the movie, and I do feel like it's shot really well in this movie. I really just don't I think the movie's really messy with all the plot holes and everything, and that's mainly because the Weinsteins kept making Wes Craven reshoot the movie, to where originally I think if it would have just kept the two killers, it would have made it a lot more sense. But instead, because they had to rework the third act and everything and reshot it and remove scenes and stuff, it just contradicts a lot of what the movie does. And I also think that the movie has even plot holes in the movie where Roman's laying in a coffin and Gale even feels his pulse and he's dead. I'm like, there's no way that's a dummy, and it just makes no sense. And I think those are some issues I have with the movie. And then of course of Ghostface teleporting around, because there's no way that one person could do all this stuff like turn the gas on. How would Roman even get in the house and turn the gas on when it makes more sense? Okay, Angelina's been going in and out. She turned the gas on the whole time and then ran away on the other side. When they rolled down the hill, she see Angelina come from the other side because she knew the house was going to blow up. That makes more sense with two people. And then it makes no sense even Dewey asked her, how did you get over there? And then she fakes oh my God, Tom was in the house. It makes more sense with two people. It does not make more sense with that. And I know some people always wanted this detective, to be the second killer, even though there's no way he was the killer. They even said Wes Craven in this, it was always meant to be the female. I'm so sorry to say that. It was always meant to be her, which it really sucks. And I'm hoping one day, I was hoping maybe with Scream 7 or 8, they'll bring Angelina in. It's see, I'm not dead. And then it'll close that, plot hole for good. But, if I had to give this movie a grade, I'm going to give it a C+. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Matt. Give this guy some love and subscribe.
Sharpton for president, y'all. I'm outie.
Jesse Jackson for VP.